Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Transgender Show. I'm your host, Emily. My guest tonight is Kalie. Kalie is a ordained pastor in Georgia and an advocate for the LGBTQIA inclusion in religious institutions. She has a passion for building community and supporting and protecting the rights of individuals. She was dismissed from her seminary after being outed as trans. She then joined the lawsuit challenging religious exemptions in Title IX in order to stop religious institutions from discriminating against LGBTQIA plus folks while receiving federal funding. Everybody, welcome to the show, Kalie.
Hi.
Hi, Kalie. With that out of the way, I like to jump in with my first question about your story, which is my favorite one. How did you choose your name?
um, yeah, my name is actually my given name. Except for changed the spelling on it. So, um,
Interesting.
yeah, I didn't actually like choose a new name.
Hmm. I often wonder when people choose a name that's very close to theirs or is just the feminine version. Like when you do that, a lot of times like the nicknames and stuff like that are the same.
Mhm.
Does
Mhm.
that in any way contribute to dysphoria for you?
No. So I like my name. And being called Kaylee, well, being raised to be like a cis male. And with the name Kaylee, I got like teased a lot for having a feminine name. But I really kind of like how, I don't know, I kind of feel like I took back my name a little bit. But at the same time, like I definitely needed to do something because I don't know, I just felt like I needed to change something, but I didn't actually want to like change my name. So yeah, I just chose to spell it differently. Um, and a lot, a lot of that is from lyrics from the artist Similar
Hmm.
because they have a couple lines about like learning your name and stuff like that that um, was really resonating with me. Like I really need to like break free from the way that a lot of people saw me and to like actually be myself,
Hmm.
but I didn't actually want to change my name. So that's why I decided to just change the spelling is all I really did.
I love that, making the change and getting to be yourself without having to
Hmm.
give up yourself or what you liked about yourself. I
Yeah,
love that.
yeah.
So you mentioned in the pre-interview that you transitioned recently. When did you first realize that the term transgender was what applied to you?
Um, no, that's I mean that's really an interesting story. I actually like came out to my wife before I had the terminology trans or transgender, which um, uh, yeah, because I was just telling her like how I was feeling and stuff like that, but didn't actually know that anything like gender dysphoria or uh, like all the stuff that I know now. So like after the conversation is whenever like I got on Google and like searched what I was talking about, and it's like, oh, this is called gender dysphoria. This is what trans people experience, and so that is kind of like the shortened version of how I came to realize that that's like a good description of who I am.
Hmm.
Um, but the day that that started was actually July 4th, 2019.
Wow.
So,
And so what sort of things did you bring up in that first conversation with your wife? What were those things that you could put words to that you were feeling?
um, yeah. Okay. So, um, my wife and I were like, uh, we we were both like raised very conservative Christian,
Hmm.
and um, we've been together for 14 years now. So we've been together a long time. Uh, but like we had changed our faith a lot, and like we were in this process of like figuring out like who we are. she came out to me as bisexual. Um, but she kept on saying like, what is it about you? You can't be just, a straight guy. And um, so like finally she was actually asking me if like I'd be interested in doing drag, which is not the same thing,
Mhm.
but I kind of latched onto that and was like, actually, I would actually like to be a woman. Um, which, that language is still like, looking back on it, I'm like, yeah, I was a woman. I just, hadn't put words to it yet. But, at at that point I was like very much in this, I was assigned male at birth, and like, this is who I'm supposed to be, apparently.
Mhm.
And so like the way I worded it was like, yeah, I would like to be a woman and be perceived as a woman and stuff like that.
Hmm.
So um, yeah, there was a little confusion in that conversation because of like different context of how we were talking and things like that.
Yeah, isn't it crazy? I think that's pretty common. The not having the language, not kind of fully understanding things, but that thought that you couldn't say that I am a woman, that you want to be a woman because, again, you're signed male at birth, and it's just something.
Mm-hmm.
It's out there that you don't have access to, and you're not supposed to. So it's like it's more something that you want to do than it is something you need to do or that you already are. I love that.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
As you looked into the terms and got to this point of like, yes, I'm transgender, what I'm experiencing is gender dysphoria, I like to then go back and kind of trace back those breadcrumbs that led up to that. What were some of those for you that you could trace back to your youth, and kind of pinpoint what the earliest period that you might have experienced some of these things?
Um, yeah, so one of the things is, like I said, I grew up very conservative Christian, and I grew up like my family would celebrate Easter, and on every Easter I or I remember being really young and being super excited about Easter because Easter is that time that you dress up, and like my mom would make homemade dresses for my sister and stuff. And then like Easter would come, and I would dress in like a nice button up shirt and nice pants, and like it was honestly the most like disheartening feeling of showing up like that. Um, and like at the time, I really framed it like, I just don't like dressing up. Now looking back on it, I was realizing that I was actually upset that I didn't have that same like position of looking pretty on Easter.
Mhm.
And like I shared that, and I realized like in a lot of settings with like cis people, like um, I've had people latch onto that and be like, "So you just wanted to dress like a girl?" And it's like, no, I actually was like 5 years old and feeling a sense that I wasn't accepted in the place that I needed to be accepted at.
Mhm.
And that really came out during like Easter, because all of these like other girls were getting these really nice dresses the first time they're wearing them, showing up to church, and everybody's saying, "Oh, you look so pretty in your Easter dress," and all this stuff. And it's like I wasn't allowed in that space. Um, and so like it was much less to do with the the clothing and a lot to do with like the actual fact that I didn't feel like I was in the right space when I was there.
Yeah.
Obviously I couldn't have put words to it back then, but like looking back on it, like that's exactly like what I was feeling. So that's like one of my earliest like memories of having dysphoria. Um, but it's really hard because as a kid I didn't have language for being trans. I was taught that being uh, that there's people that are gay and there's people that are honestly who's not gay. So there's the normal people and there's the gay people, and being gay was wrong and sinful. and like you can't be around those people. Like I had an aunt tell me that I shouldn't be watching The Lion King because Elton John did the music and Elton John is gay, and like all of these things. So like my entire framework of understanding myself was you're either normal or gay. Um, and I'm sorry, like there's people watching and I'm using triggering language. I'm like really sorry. I, this is definitely not how I see the world today. That's how it was presented to me. And
No,
I'm sure that
yeah,
other people,
we talk about this very often on this show. It's very common, especially from the kids that are brought up in highly Christian families. There's straight and there's gay, there's wrong and there's everybody, or there's right and there's everybody else, and everybody else is wrong. And then I love, of course, the turn where you're like, no, I'm not gay, I'm trans, but I'm gay because I like women.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, like I grew up in that context of like knowing I was different and being terrified that I was different, and like praying that I wasn't gay, and but like also being reassuring myself that I wasn't, because I was only into women. Um and so like that, and I don't know, it's like if you're not given the language to understand who you are as a kid, it gets framed in what language you have.
Yeah.
And so that's what I did. I framed it in the language I had, which was very limited. So like now I'm going back and looking at different events and be like, oh, that was dysphoria. That was me recognizing who I was back then, but couldn't like actually acknowledge it because I I couldn't, like I didn't have the language. If I did, like my family would have disowned me. Like I have a gay older cousin that's like 7 years older than me. And he came out as gay, and like my family disowned him. So like there's a lot. There's a
Yeah.
lot to like keep you in the closet and keep you from like asking questions about your identity and who you are. And so to like work through that and then look back on everything is kind of a lot.
Yeah.
Whenever, yeah.
So your wife, you get into this conversation with your wife, and she mentions, probably a couple times that you can't just be a straight guy. That's like something's not computing
Yeah.
here. What was it though that actually cracked your egg? What was it that led to, we need to have a conversation? There's something big going on here.
Oh, it was my wife actually. It was the one that initiated that conversation, thinking that uh, I would that I would like to do drag or something, and she started it. So
Mhm.
like actually, is
Okay.
my wife that cracks my egg for bringing up the conversation.
Yeah. So she broached the subject, and it all kind of clicked for you, and it's just
Yeah,
like, yeah,
and
yeah, they
so,
got that. Let's do that.
yeah, yeah, and it's like all of those pieces of like my background, my history, and different aspects of like my experience, like just made sense.
Mhm.
Like recognizing that this is what's going on. Like it's almost like I didn't give myself permission to connect those dots until my wife was like, "Hey, I think that you would enjoy doing drag," and I heard it as, "I think you would enjoy being a woman." And just that little bit of permission was enough to actually like go through everything and recognize like all the little, like it was like a puzzle being put together finally after years.
Mhm.
So yeah, it was my wife like um just asking the question, honestly.
So you've got kind of a mixed past with, um, you know, the LGBT in your family and in your experience, where you're brought up to think that it was all bad, it was all wrong. Then you have a cousin that comes out and is roundly rejected by your family. And then your
Mhm.
wife comes out to you as bisexual. By the time it was your turn to come out and start to accept who you were, what was that internal struggle for you, and how did you come to accept those terms? Was it difficult for you, or because you'd sort of had this lead up with the people in your life, it was a little bit easier for you to accept and to come to grips with?
Um, so I mean, one of the biggest things for me was deconstructing my faith to the point where like I know I didn't uh, because I was already an ordained pastor at this point, and I had deconstructed to the point where like I was affirming of LGBTQ plus people,
Mm-hmm.
and so that really helped. Um, I don't think I had told too many people at this point, um, and but that was like a big factor, like giving myself permission, like I'm not going to go to hell, is and I've moved a long ways from there. Like I don't really think of things in what uh, honestly, I don't really believe in hell, which maybe we'll get into that later. But having worked through my faith and stuff like that was kind of a uh, big factor in it. Uh, um, I didn't tell, mm, I didn't hardly tell anybody for almost a year, about 9 months. Um, besides my wife. So I told a cousin, I told one friend, and my wife told a friend, and like that was pretty much it. And one of the reasons was I was enrolled in seminary, and in a seminary that would not take very kindly to the fact that I'm trans because they think that it's wrong. So like there's kind of that I'm recognizing that I'm trans, but I don't know what I'm going to do yet.
Yeah.
That kind of happens. So it was really like weighing where I'm at, what I'm trying to do, plus like navigate, being married and all this because my wife thought she was married to a man, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's a big change. So it was there was a lot to work through, and like I said, I knew coming out to my family wasn't going to go over well. Coming out to my wife's family wasn't going to go over well. It was kind of a lot. So so it was basically until I decided to transition um, the following April, so April 2020, that um, I even really started to actually tell anyone.
Mm-hmm. And how did you get to there? How did you go from having to look online to find out that you're trans to figuring out what it was that you needed to do in your transition to be yourself?
Um, honestly, like there's honestly just a lot of excitement. Like learning about it and like reading articles about what trans people go through and be like, oh, that's actually my story, and um, like seeing the outcome of like people being happy at the end of transitioning and all this stuff. Like I honestly just got really excited that that I could actually do this, and I mean I was I was right. It's like so one of the things that my mom asked whenever I came out to her was like, I thought that you were happy. Why would you go through with this? And like I can honestly tell you now, I didn't know what being happy with yourself was until I transitioned. It's honestly like the first like I'm 34 years old. It took me 30 33 years to start transitioning. So it took 33 years for me to actually feel comfortable in the body that I was given.
Mm-hmm.
And So yeah, I mean, I was excited. I was excited to get to that same point.
It's such a beautiful way to put it. Yeah, that uh, I looking back, I posted a Transition Tuesday post today, and it's just like, there are a lot of smiles in the old photos. And it's just like, I was happy and I could be
Mhm.
happy. But the thing I wasn't happy with was myself. So that's a really key distinction there, and a really nice way of putting like what the impetus is and what the big thing that needs to happen in our lives for us to find that inner happiness.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and jump ahead a little bit in the coming out story to your parents, and how first did you broach that topic, and how did that conversation go?
Um, so honestly, uh, I, I got really emotional whenever I was coming up on my first appointment to start HRT, and I really wished that my mom would be there with me,
Mm,
um, and like realizing that I hadn't even told her. Also, we don't live in the same state. I'm in Georgia. She's on the West Coast. So, uh, I mean, there's that entire thing. But um, yeah, I just like, I really realized that I really wanted my parents to know and hoped that they would be okay and accept me. Um, and like, that was like something like super like in my core. Like, I have to give at least my mom the opportunity to accept me for who I am, or yeah. So that's that's why like I made the decision to tell them when I did. I actually didn't tell my mom or my dad. I only told my mom, and I called her because I had my appointment coming up like in a week or something like that,
mhm.
and uh, just forced myself to tell her. And um, yeah, so uh, that's how I went about it.
Well, that's another important point that it's really easy to lose sight of because we're afraid, we're worried about how people are going to react. We prejudge how people are going to react,
Mhm.
and we avoid some of those conversations. And it's important to remember that a lot of the times we need to give people the chance to accept us. We need to
Yeah,
give them the chance to react how they're going to react and see how that is. I found that more often than not, people generally surprise you and they're more supportive than you think. Um, Family, of course, though, is the one wild card where it's like, no, they pretty much react the way you would think.
yeah. Um, I mean, I had a little bit of ambiguity of what might happen, just because, like I said, I already worked through like spiritual issues and being affirming of LGBTQ plus people. And so like I actually would have conversations with my mom about like how I became affirming and stuff. And she seemed like she was actually coming around.
Hmm.
And so maybe if I didn't tell her for another like few months, it might have went different. But uh, I really wasn't in the place to wait a few more months
Mhm.
because I just needed to tell her. So yeah, that's why like I had some ambiguity about what like how my mom would actually react.
Mhm.
Virtually everybody else reacted the way that we anticipated. My wife's parents reacted the way she thought they would. My dad reacted the way I thought he would. Um, the the most surprising person was actually my sister, and I actually told I didn't include her. She was actually the second person I told, um, because I uh, after my egg cracked. I was visiting family back on the West Coast, and uh, she was going through some hard stuff, and like, um, so to like kind of share that I was going through things too. Like, I came out to her,
Hmm.
and it was really interesting because like the day before we had a conversation about the fact that she didn't feel comfortable with trans people using the women's restroom whenever she has kids. So like it was a little sketchy. But honestly, like she has been supportive and affirming ever since I came out.
Wow.
And that's honestly been like really amazing
Yeah.
to see that, because yeah, for her to go from like where she was the day before to like accepting me the next day was, I don't know, I mean, like that's kind of what a loving family is supposed to be like,
Yeah.
right? um, like you tell them something, especially about like who you are, and they're just like, okay. um yeah, so I mean, I wish I wish more family would respond in that way.
Yeah. So how is she on the bathroom bills issue then now?
Um, she changed her mind. We actually, me and her husband actually got her to a different um, position that day.
Hmm.
Just being like, honestly, the most dangerous place for kids is the men's restroom with all of the cis guys,
Yeah.
because or like, in a church, because clergy have a tendency to like be pedophiles apparently. And like most people in a bathroom actually want to just pee. Like, surprise, surprise.
Yeah, right.
So it yeah, that I mean, that conversation, like she changed her mind. I think she just, had seen news or social media or whatever, and like had an opinion and hadn't actually expressed it or anything.
Mhm.
So yeah.
As we said in the intro, in your bio there, you were dismissed from seminary because you were outed. How did that come about? And yeah, what were those? What was your reaction to that?
Yeah. So yeah, with okay, I'm gonna do some story for this.
Perfect.
So I graduated my from my undergrad in 2009, and I went directly to seminary, which I went to Lincoln Christian University. And from 2009 to 2010, I did 3 semesters at Lincoln and got some I don't remember how many credits. But I was also married. We had just had our daughter, and it was 2010, and like the economy just sucked, and it was rural Illinois. So I left seminary and I joined the military, and I was in the military for almost 9 years. Um, the last year during my military, I knew I was getting out, and I wanted to start taking classes. I wanted to finish my seminary education, and so it'd been 8 years by this point, and um, so like the only place I was going to take all my credits was Lincoln, and uh, like I didn't want to go back. Like I didn't want to go to a new school and like lose credits and stuff and just have to make up work. But also, like, Lincoln is my tradition. It's independent Christian church. It's what I grew up in and was part of for 30 plus years. So like it made sense to go back to Lincoln. That they were offering their Masters of Divinity as an online program. So I actually enrolled, uh, or I I got accepted into the school and enrolled the end of spring 2019. And like I said, my egg cracked uh, July 4th, 2019. So um, I was already registered for school. Like uh, I I mean, I had to make a choice. Like, I chose to continue going to seminary because, like I said, your egg cracks and like you don't know what you're gonna do, right?
Hmm.
Like, it takes some time to actually process and like know what exactly you do want to do. And so, like, I went forward and I started taking classes, um, and so I did. Yeah. So
So,
I
so what
started
was what
there.
was
I
it
knew
the?
that they weren't an
Oh, go ahead.
affirming. What?
Oh, go ahead. Sorry, I stepped on you.
Oh, okay. I knew that they weren't an affirming school, but I didn't know if I was going to transition or whatever. So I started taking classes again.
Hmm.
Um, and then, like, during this process, or during the time that I was at school, I realized I did need to actually transition. Um, and so I started transitioning in April of 2020, which was, right at the beginning of the pandemic. But also, like, all my classes were at a distance. I live in Georgia, they're in Illinois, so it's like I'm not even there in person.
Yeah.
um, and so I did another over a year of school, going full time, and then just the end of last summer, in August, they sent me um, they sent me an email and it said notice of charge, but I misread it, and I thought it said notice of change because one of my professors actually just left like right before the semester started.
Hmm.
So I'm like a week in, but one of my classes is still like they're still figuring it out. um, and so I'm like, oh, okay, notice of change has something to do with probably with this class that's kind of up in the air. um, and then like the subject of the email is like uh, is see attached for notice of charge, and again misread it because I had already misread it, I assumed. um, yeah. uh, so yeah, I was literally sitting in the parking lot picking up my kid from an after school program and just looking at my phone because that email came in, and so I opened the attachment and it's like right there at the beginning, they're just like tell me that they tell me that because I uh, am choosing to live as a transgender woman, um, that is against their policy. And basically I had a choice to withdraw from classes because it was still in that grace period
Hmm.
of of like you could pull out and not get charged for the credits. And I had 3 days to do that. So it's not like wasn't necessarily like it takes some time to think about it. Like it had to happen, um, or stay in school and face a disciplinary committee. Um, and like I don't know about the average person, but I don't have a few $1,000s to risk being kicked out of school, like formally.
Hmm.
So I withdrew from classes, because that's those were my options. I mean, it's not really an option. Like no, most people, like we were on a single income. I don't have thousands of dollars to try to fight something that I know I'm going to lose
Yeah.
because I know their stance. So um, yeah, so I'm like just sitting in the parking lot and I read this letter, and uh, it's just it was so dehumanizing to just have them point out you choose to identify as a transgender woman, and it's like it's not even true. Like, yeah, I'm a trans woman. Like, I didn't choose this. I like this is literally who I am, and
Yeah.
like just reducing me to this ideology that they can say shouldn't exist in their institution. um yeah, dehumanizing is just really the only word that really captures it, because they no longer saw me as a person. They saw me as an issue that needed to be resolved.
And
So
quickly,
like,
apparently.
yeah, quickly. um, so yeah, but I, like I said, I was picking up my kid. I still had to get them home. I had to make dinner. I had to get my kids in bed. Um, I had to clean up after dinner, like all these normal things that you have to do every single day,
Mm,
like still has to get done. And I just shoved it down. I was like numb for a few hours until finally my kids were in bed, and like it just came out. And uh, it was, I mean, it was hard, like to just be treated in a way, in that way, to not be seen as a real person, and to be told that you don't belong
mhm.
because we don't like the fact that you exist. It like that's honestly traumatizing.
Yeah.
Uh, I actually did get into another seminary like really quick, and that's its own story. But I I didn't feel safe in the academic space for until the end of the semester. Like I didn't actually get into an academic headspace until I was writing the final paper for one of my classes. Like
Mm.
it was hard. It was it, it yeah, it was just really hard to process and work through all that.
I can imagine. Yeah, especially since it's what you grew up with. It's this organization, this thing, that you've it's all about faith, and you've had your faith in them, and then just like that they've turned their back on you. Did you have any indication of how they found out, and why this came to light, being a remote student?
Um, they cited that they cited a article that I wrote for an online blog,
Oh, okay.
um, and I was doing a mentored. Um, it was mentored ministry experience. So I was interning at the church. I still work at this
Mm.
church, but it was counted as an internship. And the senior pastor was my mentor, and he, knowing that they weren't an affirming institution, chose to not use pronouns for his review of me. And so they said that they found that article, and then on top of that, the way that the senior pastor worded things in that review time.
Hmm.
Um,
Confirmed it. Mm.
I do have I do have a theory about like the possibility of something else had happened, but that's I don't have any proof, so
Mhm.
it's like yeah.
Did your mentor help you in finding another seminary then to go through to complete? Because it sounded like you had the support of your mentor and that church, right?
Yeah, I did. So it's actually, yeah, that's a really interesting story. And I think it kind of highlights the way that Twitter is like the way a lot of, at least a lot of queer people connect that I've found.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, he reached out to the school that he went to, and the admissions, the one of the people in admissions contacted me and talked to me and wanted to try to help me. Um, and uh, I was having the issue of basically no seminary is going to take more than 1/3 of the required credits, which is really crappy of them. They, um,
They want you to do it their way with the.
yeah, they want, um, and so we're having my pastor was like, look, this is an injustice that you can fix. Can you help out? And so, and this was Lexington Theological Seminary, and they were actually trying to work and to get it so they could bend the rules for me. And so they were in that process. Um, there was a few other seminaries that I reached out to that basically just said no. Um, but this person in admissions was going to Wild Goose Festival, and then met Aaron Green from Reap, who Reap is who I'm partnering with this lawsuit. And so I got connected with Reap, and then like Aaron was Aaron was just like, um, how is there anything that we can do to help you right now? And I was so frustrated about not finding a seminary that would take my credits, that I was just like, honestly, I just really wish I could find a seminary where I don't have to go back an extra year and a half. And so they tweeted, it's time for something like, it's time for affirming seminaries to step up and take the credits of queer students that are being kicked out of their schools. And
Ooh,
uh,
love it.
yeah, and then Mason Menega from United Theological Seminary of Twin Cities was like, we actually specifically work to take as many credits as possible. Can I connect with this person? And so uh, that day, that day I got an email from Mason and it was like, can we be on a Zoom call tonight? It was like 9 o'clock at night. So I'm
Oh,
like,
wow.
oh, oh, okay.
So
Sure.
everything for
Like,
you in seminary had to happen immediately, super fast.
yeah, basically. Um, and like my like people started to see that like what happened to me in like the queer Christian seminary circles, because I had tweeted about being kicked out of seminary and it got really popular,
Hmm.
which was really weird because I started that day with 72 followers, and um, like I was not ready for a tweet to have that much attention, so that was also overwhelming. um, and so like he had already seen my tweet, and from like a week or so before, um, and like so we got on a Zoom call, and he's like, our classes start tomorrow. If you can if you can fill out this application form and get it in tonight, then we will get you in seminary and we will get as many credits as possible. Um, and I'm gonna set you up with I'm gonna set you up with a meeting with our registrar first thing tomorrow morning so you can get registered for classes. And so that's what happened. Like I had a meeting with the registrar the very next day, and we uh, classes started on a Thursday, which was weird, but whatever. And so we took I took two classes that didn't start that Thursday, and uh, yeah, I ended up getting in two classes like just a couple of weeks after being kicked out of the other one. And United
That's
is it
wonderful.
has trimesters,
Mm,
so that's why they started later, because they actually have a full term during the summer. So
okay.
they start almost a month, almost, well, 3 weeks or so later than other seminaries
Mm.
during the fall term. So that's how I was able to get into another seminaries. They just have a different schedule. um, but also, like, I had to pay out of pocket for two classes because I was in the military and I was paying with my GI Bill, but that has to be approved before classes start. So I couldn't get it approved um, through to the new school. So I had to actually pay out of pocket to take those classes.
So everything happened super fast, but too fast for the military to help you pay for it. That's a bummer.
Yep. That that's about normal.
So you had your church that you were already involved in, and you had a mentor. As far as being trans and new to this identity, new to the language, what was your first experience in trying to find community, trying to find others that were like you to help you kind of understand what this was going to be like?
um, yeah, like I said, I started transitioning April 2020, which has its ups and downs. The downs is like, um, nobody was meeting up in person anywhere. But also like I moved to where I'm at now, and so like I left all of my friends behind because I'm in a new city. There's a pandemic, so I can't meet new people. Uh, so I spent like the first 9 months of transitioning, like not having really anybody, um, which that was hard. I kind of connected with some people over Twitter, but that was mostly like me following people and nobody else knowing who I was.
Hmm.
Um, and uh, yeah, so like that part was really hard because I didn't get a community. I mean, there were upsides. Like I went through the awkward phases of transition without people seeing me. I did laser hair removal and stuff while wearing a mask every time I went out in public. So like there were upsides too, but
Yeah.
uh, yeah, the truth is I didn't really have a community until about 9 months in. Um, Actually, whenever I found the church that I'm at, that was the first people that was kind of a community. Um, there, re- uh, there are other trans people connected with the church, but not like it was still like that was January 2021, and
Hmm.
like so church isn't in person. It's like the senior pastor and the worship or the music director and the organist, and like those are the people I interacted with for the first few months. It um but I got connected with um the previous seminary intern,
Hmm.
and she's trans as well, and
Oh,
she's
okay.
actually the first I believe she's the first ordained or first trans person ordained by the Georgia region of the Disciples of Christ. So that was really cool.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I mean, other than that, like a lot of my community has come from online. Almost all of it has come from online. Just I don't know. Queer people tend to take science serious, and so we weren't really the ones going out and
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
meeting up in groups. So like that part was really hard. Like you connected with people online or you didn't connect with people because people weren't meeting up.
Hmm. Well, and that's why, I think that's why I felt so strongly to start something like this, where like we've got community, it's all online. We've got people from all over the world. I know very few people in my local area, sort of the same thing. I've been able to kind of branch out a little bit since things have loosened up. But yeah, most of mine has come from online and bringing it into the real world, actually meeting up with people and things like that. But then also, like I said, starting something like this where there's a show where people from the community can actually see us and hear us and hear our stories, and hopefully that brings that connection. Just kind of seeing it out there, seeing people that are going through the same thing, and then being able to interact with chat, which of course you can't do right now, but we'll bring forth their questions and comments after we take our break. So I've got, we're pretty far through this portion of the show. I have a very ethereal question I like to ask people, and that is, on a deep level, what does transition mean to you?
um, to me, it means living into who I am. I, I I spent the vast majority of my life trying really hard to be a guy. Like I feel like you shouldn't have to try hard to be like who you are.
Hmm.
Um, and so transitioning for me has just been mostly giving up trying so hard. It and just really just being who I am.
I love
And
that. That's beautiful.
yeah, I mean, so yeah, that's it. It's just I don't have to try anymore. that
So,
Yeah, that's
my
what
follow up question to that usually is how far are you along in your process? How far do you feel that you are as far as like where you started knowing nothing and what maybe your initial end goals were? Where are you at?
um I mean, my end goals whenever I started, I didn't really have them. Um I'm I'm actually in a really pretty good place at the moment. There's still some things that I would like to do, that I'm trying to situate things so I can do them.
Hmm.
But uh, honestly, I don't really have dysphoria very often anymore, um, which is really, I mean, people might look at me and be like, "No, I wouldn't be happy with where she's at," and that's fine. But like, I'm pretty happy, like where I'm at and like what I'm doing, and um, yeah. So I'm
That
not 100% sure on the end
yeah.
goal at this point. Is I feel like, I mean, I think I feel like I've made it further than I ever thought I would,
Hmm.
and that is kind of a lot in and of itself.
That's a really unfortunate thought that you mentioned there that people wouldn't think that where you are in your journey is where they would want to be. I'm very disheartened to hear that. All of our journeys are different. All of our journeys are beautiful. You're exactly where you need to be when you need to be it. So,
Um, I think I say that because, uh, like, we're all on our own process,
mhm,
right?
yeah.
And if I'm honest, like, when I realized I was trans, I was very transphobic. Um, and a lot of people are. I mean, let's
That
just be
was
honest about that.
Yeah.
Uh,
That was one of the hardest parts for me. Yeah, absolutely. It was my
yeah,
own internalized transphobia. Even as I was started to come out, hanging out with trans folks was really made me uncomfortable. I just wasn't ready
yeah.
for it.
And so, like, I understand if somebody is still in their process and they look at me and be like, "Oh, I want to do better than that," or whatever. Like, I'm okay with that. I think that probably does reveal a little bit of stuff that we all work through, but um, it's kind of one of those things. Like, you have to actually have that thought before you recognize where that thought actually comes from. And so, like, I kind of feel okay with people thinking it or possibly even saying it, um, because I know that they're on their own. They're on their own journey. So
Yeah. Well, and yeah, I mean, that's one of our main things here in the transverse is that everybody's journey is valid and
mhm.
we go through our own struggles to get there. Yeah, no judgment and no gatekeeping here. You're doing just fine. And as long as you're being true to yourself and what you need, that's what's most important. My next question is, you said you didn't really have too much of a big goal. Have you found anything as you've moved along that has shifted in either what you thought you might want or thought you would never do that now you're kind of moving towards? Have your goals shifted as you've moved along?
um, yeah. So uh, whenever my egg cracked, I was first coming out. Honestly, like, for almost the first year of transitioning, uh, I was constant. Like, I would say that I didn't want any kind of surgeries. Um, but that's changed. It's like, the more that you work through some dysphoria, the more you realize that you have other dysphoria. And so, like, that's like um that one thing that I'm still like putting in order is so I can actually get bottom surgery. And that wasn't something I thought I was going to want whenever I first started transitioning. But um, like I'm coming up on almost 2 years of transition, and like I I kind of need it.
Hmm.
It and so yeah, that's definitely that's been a process. Like I think we have an idea sometimes of where we're going to be, where we're going to be happy with, but that changes because a lot of times we have so much repression that we don't even realize we have, that once we start working through it, then it starts to unravel, and we realize that, oh, actually this might be true, or whatever. And it's like it's just really all kind of part of the process of going through that, because you have to work through so much to get to the place where you can actually say this is who I am, that once that starts happening, like it just keeps going.
Hmm. Well, yeah, and that's one of those are a couple points that you bring up there that are why that question is key to ask on this show. One, it's a journey. There
Hmm.
isn't a destination. It's a journey. You figure out along the way what's right for you and what you want to do. And all of it, again, is valid. And, it's okay to change it. It's okay to want different things. And you will find that as you move along through it, it will shift. It's just a natural thing. And you have to shed a lot of that inner transphobia, a lot of that inner hate and confusion about yourself, and find what it is that you truly need and want, and honor that. And it takes time to get there, definitely.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you're fairly short lived in your transition. 2 years is a relatively short time, especially,
Mhm.
as we, those of us that transition in our 30s and later. But in that short time, do you feel there's anything that you've been able to accomplish because you are trans?
um I mean, basically everything that I'm doing now is because I'm trans, and a lot of it is because I got kicked out of seminary.
Mm,
So it's really weird to say. Like, um, it kind of gave me a little bit of a platform to do what I've been doing. So like, uh, I was able to head the Trans Day of Remembrance service for um, the entire Disciples of Christ denomination.
mm,
It was put on by the Disciples LGBTQ plus Alliance. Um, like I'm getting to join with REAP, and like people are asking me uh, to tell the world how messed up the way that religious institutions are treating trans and queer students. Um, and then uh, like I've had an opportunity to write a devotional that was published with our Bible app. Um, and I've written a few articles for different things. So like almost everything that I'm doing now is like trans and religiously connected. And so yeah, it's almost like all of it, like outside of like my family and stuff like that, which has always been there. Um, basically everything is connected with being trans.
mm. I love that you're getting to live and focus all of your energy on the things that are the biggest in your life right now.
Yeah.
Like you said, excluding family, religion, and being transgender. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Is there a favorite thing that you have that you've learned in your journey?
I've been able to like write theology stuff that is based in like very conservative hermeneutics and scholarship, but come to like affirming points that has been it's been really cool. I think I'm not sure, but I think I'm the first person to publish something stating that Joseph in the book of Genesis is actually um, it is actually called a mother, because Joseph was gender diverse, and that's a whole thing that we can get into, is the very, very apparent gender diverse person in the book of Genesis, that at the end of this person's life, the Bible makes a very specific reference to the fact that they mothered their great grandkids, like adopted mother. Um, and like, I never knew that was there. Like nobody is reading, taking conservative scholarship and being like, oh, hey, actually, if we like read things a little more consistently, then we get to see a lot of different perspectives that might actually already be there.
Hmm.
So that's been a lot of fun for me to do that.
As we wrap up this section, what advice do you have for younger closeted trans folks out there?
Um, Specifically for closeted, I would say, uh, be nice to yourself. There is no timeline to come out. Uh, there is no timeline to transition. You know yourself, you know your situation, um, and it, like, let's be honest, the world is kind of scary for being trans at the moment. Uh, so just take care of yourself. When you're ready to come out, like, we'll be here for you. We're going to accept you. And if you need to just come out to uh, one person that you know that is going to be affirming, then do that. Just to be able to talk to somebody. It it doesn't have to be this. I'm coming out. I'm living my life the way that I want to. That I know I need to live it right now. Take your time.
Mhm.
Find people that are going to affirm you. Find people that are going to love you through it all. Um, like I said, I'm on Twitter. If you're religious and you're trans and you're trying to reconcile that, just hit me up and DM me, because that's, I mean, that's kind of what I do. like I, yeah,
That's so wonderful that you offer that. And I think that our community definitely can take advantage of that. So thank you.
yeah.
Kalie, thank you so much for being willing to come on here and share so much of your story. We really appreciate having you on here. I really enjoyed talking to you tonight.
Thanks. I really appreciate being on, and this was fun. I really enjoyed it.